My name is Athena Sinclair. I'm 34 years old. Approximately 3 months ago, I undertook an 18-hour journey by air to participate in my sister's wedding ceremony. Upon my arrival at the venue, I was met with an unexpected and deeply painful moment. My own parents positioned themselves at the entrance and instructed me to depart. "Only family members are permitted inside," my mother stated flatly. "You were not on the guest list." I remained frozen in place, wearing the elegant dress I had selected 2 months prior. Clutching the carefully wrapped gift I had prepared the evening before in my hotel room, as I witnessed my mother's expression remain completely unmoved. There was no sign of remorse, no hesitation, simply the sound of a door shutting between us. I had personally authorized every single vendor agreement for that wedding. Every contract bore my signature and my financial commitment. I had submitted the required deposits months in advance without reservation. 3 days elapsed before she reached out. Not to express any apology or regret, she called to inform me of an outstanding financial obligation, $38,000, and what I responded in that moment caught her completely off guard. Before I reveal what transpired next, I would genuinely appreciate if you could take a moment to engage with and subscribe to this content. However, only if you find this narrative truly compelling and worth your time. Additionally, I would welcome it if you could share your geographical location and the current time where you are in the comments section. I would find it genuinely interesting to learn about the different parts of the world where people are following this account. Now, allow me to transport you backward in time to last November. The specific day my sister made her engagement announcement, it was a Tuesday night in London. Rainfall was gently striking against the window pane of my apartment. My cellular device received an incoming video call request from Brooke, my younger sibling, just 26 years of age, who had recently finished her academic studies and continued to reside merely 10 minutes away from our parents in Cedar Bluff, Tennessee. I accepted the call. Brooke's expression dominated the screen, radiating joy and excitement. In the background, I could see our mother Diane carefully positioning something on the kitchen counter. "I'm going to be married," Brooke announced enthusiastically, displaying a diamond ring. "Garrett asked me to be his wife last evening at the vineyard location." It was absolutely perfect. I experienced a wave of authentic joy fill my entire being. "Brooke, that's truly wonderful. I'm thrilled for you. Thank you so much." Garrett's family members are incredibly excited as well. The Caldwell family has already made available their barn space as the wedding location. Can you even imagine? I had previous knowledge of the Caldwell family. Everyone within Cedar Bluff was familiar with them. They controlled the biggest collection of automobile dealerships across 3 surrounding counties. Garrett Caldwell represented the youngest member of the family, displaying courtesy, physical attractiveness, and originating from significant family wealth. "Mom, come and acknowledge Athena," Brooke said, redirecting the phone's camera. Diane moved into view on the screen. She produced a smile, though it appeared superficial and didn't fully extend to her eyes. "Hello, sweetie, this is rather thrilling, isn't it?" "It absolutely is," I responded. "I'll start searching for airline transportation. What date has been selected?" A moment of silence followed. Diane exchanged a glance with Brooke, then returned her attention to me. "Well, please don't spend excessive amounts of money on a plane ticket. We're planning a rather intimate wedding. Mom, it's Brooke's special day." "I will absolutely be there. We shall determine that," Diane responded carefully. "In any case, we have considerable planning work ahead of us. I'll allow Brooke to communicate the particulars to you." She exited the video frame. Brooke continued our conversation for an additional 10 minutes, discussing floral arrangements and color schemes. I participated attentively, smiling and documenting information, but an uncomfortable sensation had settled within my chest. This represented the initial occasion in 24 months that I possessed a legitimate reason to return to my hometown. I should have recognized the significance of how determinedly my mother was attempting to discourage my attendance. Approximately 14 days later, Diane initiated contact with me directly, not Brooke but Diane herself. The call came on a Thursday afternoon, which translated to the morning hours in Tennessee, indicating she had been contemplating this conversation since waking. "Athena, I need to discuss something that requires your practical consideration." "Of course," I said. "The reservation at the venue requires a credit card authorization on record to maintain the booking." Your father and I, well, you're aware that our credit rating hasn't recovered since the loan restructuring. Additionally, Brooke has just completed her education. She lacks the established credit record necessary. I reclined back in my office chair. I could already anticipate the direction this discussion was heading. Furthermore, the catering service requires the same documentation, she elaborated. The floral arrangement company, the photography service, and the videography, that's 4 separate business agreements total. We simply require an individual with favorable creditworthiness to execute the paperwork. You would be performing an invaluable service for your sister. What figures are we discussing exactly? Altogether, it comes to roughly $41,000. But you would only be responsible for the initial $3,500 deposit at the commencement. The remaining balance would be charged following the completion of the event, $41,000 carrying my identification. Mom, that represents a substantial financial amount. It's not actually your financial responsibility, Athena, it's merely your authorization on the documents. We will handle the monetary obligations afterward. I give you my word that everything will be appropriately managed. I had received comparable promises previously. When I was in my early 20s, I consented to guarantee a vehicle purchase loan on behalf of my father. It consumed 3 years of effort to eliminate that from my financial records. At 28 years old, I transferred $4,000 to Diane for what she described as a heating system malfunction that ultimately turned out to be Brooke's college expenses. However, this concerned my sister's most significant life occasion, and I maintained the role of the elder sibling. The one possessing steady employment, an excellent credit standing, and a salary derived from London employment. Certainly, I said finally. Please transmit the documentation to me. I convinced myself that this represented what kinship requires. I authorized each document that week without thoroughly examining the conditions and limitations. Throughout the subsequent 3-month interval, the wedding progressively developed, and I remained distant from the process. Brooke initiated a messaging group designated Caldwell Wedding Crew. My name was conspicuously absent from the participant list. I became aware of its existence when she unintentionally transmitted me a communication intended for the group. A photograph displaying bridesmaid dress selections accompanied by the text, "Please vote." Everyone, I clearly was not part of that everyone. I reached out to Brooke on 2 occasions to inquire about dress requirements, table arrangements, and whether she would appreciate me preparing remarks to share. The initial time she promised to provide information later. The second attempt resulted in the call being declined, followed by a text response after an hour had passed. Incredibly swamped with arrangements, we'll get back with you very soon. I contacted Diane to determine if there remained additional ways I might contribute. She responded, everything is already taken care of, dear. There's absolutely nothing you need to concern yourself with. I was never given a formal invitation document. Neither a printed version nor an electronic version, yet I rationalized this as acceptable. I served the position of sibling. You do not typically mail a written invitation to your own sister. She represents family, she is naturally encompassed in the celebration. Subsequently, just 14 days before the scheduled ceremony, Brooke distributed a photograph on her Instagram account. A photograph from the preliminary dinner gathering at an establishment in Cedar Bluff. Brooke displayed in a cream-colored casual dress positioned among her chosen attendants. Diane appeared beside her displaying genuine joy. The accompanying text proclaimed, "The people I hold most dear. The individuals who comprise my complete world." I examined that photograph for precisely 11 minutes. I kept track of the duration I was absent. I had not received a request to participate in the preparatory dinner. I nearly made contact to inquire about the omission. However, I dissuaded myself from doing so. Possibly the preliminary dinner encompassed merely the wedding party participants. Potentially, they believed I would be unavailable to join in advance. Perhaps I was overanalyzing the circumstance. I established my alarm for the subsequent morning. I possessed a flight that required my presence. I obtained authorization for 5 consecutive business days away from employment. I only received 20 days of paid leave per year, and I allocated 1/4 of them to this journey. My round-trip air travel from London to Chicago, then Chicago to Nashville, totaled $1,400 in expenses. The accommodation in Cedar Bluff, spanning 3 nights at the most respectable facility available in the community, came to $680. The present for Brooke, a collection of premium culinary utensils she had expressed interest in receiving during an informal video conversation months earlier, totaled $720. My total personal investment prior to landing in Tennessee, $2,800. Throughout the initial segment of the flight, somewhere above the Atlantic Ocean, I retrieved my handheld device and accessed my personal notes application. I had been composing remarks for several weeks, not excessively lengthy, perhaps 120 seconds maximum. I intended to recollect the moment when Brooke used to engage me in pretend wedding activities using her stuffed toys when she was merely 5 years old. How she consistently allocated me the responsibility of acting as the clergyman, never as the bride herself. I believed that would be humorous. I imagined the audience would enjoy it. I went through the remarks twice while wearing earbuds, whispering softly into my scarf to prevent the gentleman in seat 14C from assuming I had experienced some kind of psychological break. Upon touching down in Chicago for my transitional connection, I transmitted a message to Diane. Successfully arrived in Chicago, 1 additional flight remains. I'm looking forward to seeing the whole group. No reply arrived for 40 minutes. Subsequently, right as the gate personnel announced my boarding classification for the Nashville leg, "Got it, busy here, we'll see you around that time." Just 5 words without an exclamation mark. Without an expression of safe travels, without any indication that they were pleased about my arrival. I studied that particular text while the personnel at the boarding entrance made their announcement. I came close to capturing an image of it and transmitting it to my companion Emma in London with the notation, "Is this unusual or am I perceiving things incorrectly?" Instead, I abstained from that action. I put away my communication device, proceeded to the aircraft, and attempted to convince myself that once I was physically present, everything would improve. 18 hours of air travel. 5 words sent in reply, no affection, no enthusiasm, no genuine welcome. I registered at the Magnolia Inn at 9:30 on Friday evening. The individual managing the reception counter produced a warm smile and inquired whether I was present for the Caldwell-Sinclair wedding celebration. It seemed the entire community was informed about the event. I confirmed, "Yes," she replied, "How wonderful." "You must be an acquaintance of the family," I said, "more or less." The accommodation was modest in dimensions, however adequately maintained. I positioned my dress within the wardrobe, a navy-colored garment I had discovered in a boutique establishment in Covent Garden. I positioned the gift-wrapped collection on the tabletop, positioned my communication device against the light fixture, and made a call to Brooke. The call continued for 4 rings before transferring to her voice message system. I transmitted a written message to Diane, now checked in to my room. What time should I be present at the location tomorrow? 60 minutes elapsed before a response materialized. The ceremony commences at 2:00 p.m. That constituted the complete message. No recommendation to come earlier, no suggestion of sharing a morning meal together beforehand, no indication that my father wanted to reconnect with me. I positioned myself on the edge of the mattress and scrutinized my appearance in the reflective surface positioned opposite. I had journeyed for 18 hours. I had expended nearly $3,000 in personal funds. I had authorized documentation totaling $41,000, and yet my mother could not provide me with more than 2 words per communication. The previous visit I made to Tennessee occurred 24 months prior for my maternal grandmother's funeral service. Diane demonstrated minimal conversational engagement with me during that occasion as well. She devoted her attention to speaking quietly with Brooke and welcoming community members. At the gathering following the service, an acquaintance posed an inquiry to Diane regarding the count of her offspring. She responded, "Just Brooke, just the one." I remained positioned 6 feet distant, holding a plate containing potato-based salad. I carefully pressed my clothing that evening with the concentration of someone preparing for a significant career interview, which essentially represented what I was engaged in. I was auditioning for acceptance within my biological family unit. I adjusted my alarm device to 8:00 and extinguished the illumination. Resting proved impossible. The Magnolia Inn featured inadequate sound barriers between rooms, and the individuals in the adjacent space were consuming television entertainment at excessive volume. But the noise was not responsible for my inability to rest. The numerical calculation was what kept me conscious: $2,800 for this experience, $38,000 remaining to be charged to my financial account. 6 years' worth of money transferred homeward each time Diane communicated a new catastrophe. The water heating apparatus, Brooks' automobile coverage, the shortfall in land taxation, I had never combined these amounts. I was reluctant to acknowledge the total. However, lying in darkness, I engaged in an even more detrimental action. I computed the additional measurement, the missed communications. The birthday acknowledgments via text message at 11:00 p.m. or instances of complete forgetfulness. The Christmas season when I made an attempt to make a video connection and no one answered because they were at the Harrisons' seasonal celebration and had excluded me from the invitation. The pictorial representations on Diane's display furniture, a collection of 3 featuring Brooke, 0 featuring me. In the event, I persisted following this trajectory, consistently providing money and appearing physically present while disregarding the injury caused by the absence of warmth. What would I ultimately forfeit? Not financial resources. I would lose my sense of self. I would mature into the individual who purchases her own participation at holiday meals and continues to be positioned at the children's area. The individual who gives monetary gifts and receives only acknowledgement in passing. Yet for this evening, I made a conscious decision to maintain my optimism, one additional opportunity. Potentially things would shift tomorrow. Potentially Diane was simply overwhelmed managing the event preparations. Potentially Brooke was consumed by last-moment requirements. Potentially when I entered tomorrow, my maternal parent would embrace me and communicate, "I am genuinely grateful for your presence." Potentially. I established my alarm chronometer and communicated internally. This represents the final instance I will arrive with unfulfilled anticipations that they have not once genuinely offered. When I walked in tomorrow, I would determine whether optimism could suffice. I closed my eyelids. Unconsciousness descended gradually and incompletely. Saturday afternoon, precisely 1:45 p.m. Meadow Creek Barn was situated upon 12 sections of sloping terrain outside the boundaries of Cedar Bluff. Cream-colored perimeter fencing, illuminated strands suspended between ancient oak specimens. A path of small pebbles bordered with glass containers and native wildflowers directing toward the entryway. The setting resembled a photograph from a publication. I positioned my leased automobile at the extreme end of the storage area. Between 30 and 40 vehicles occupied the remaining locations. Pickup-style vehicles, mid-sized family automobiles, a limited number of luxury recreational vehicles displaying the financial means of the Caldwell family. Groups of attendees shifted in the direction of the barn structure, grasping event schedules and correcting their headwear. I altered the appearance of my clothing, grasped the gift-wrapped container, and proceeded in the direction of the entryway. My footwear created slight indentations within the pebbled surface. The environment contained the fragrance of recently harvested botanical material and smoke from the cooking equipment positioned somewhere beyond the barn structure. I initially perceived my paternal parent. Frank was positioned adjacent to the barn's entry portals in a tailored jacket that lacked proper proportions for his upper body. He maintained engagement with an advanced-age individual I had not previously encountered, presumably someone from Garrett's family background. When Frank's visual perception identified me, his facial expression transformed, the sociable appearance vanished. His eyes expanded in diameter momentarily, then narrowed, then directed downward to his footwear. He did not make a welcoming gesture, he did not move toward me. Instead, he pivoted and proceeded indoors. I maintained my forward movement. 15 meters remained, 10:05, the entry portals separated from the interior and my maternal parent appeared. Diane was attired in a celebration ensemble in champagne-hued synthetic material. Her follicles were professionally styled. Her facial cosmetics were immaculate. Her lower jaw was positioned with the rigidity of hardened stone. She stopped perpendicular to my path. Her appendages were interlocked in front of her physical form, not expanded. Not communicating welcome and obstruction, Athena, her vocal expression was subdued, measured. "Hi, Mom, I'm here." She did not place her arms around me. She did not remove herself from my passage. Why have you come here? I'm here to celebrate Brooke's marriage, Mom. You should depart from this location, immediately. The declaration struck like an open-handed hit. My eyes blinked involuntarily. The container I held suddenly appeared to multiply in mass. What? I journeyed for 18 hours. Please reduce your volume level. Her visual focus moved to the individuals moving in the space behind me. Observers are present. Mom, I am your biological offspring. Diane advanced into closer proximity, positioned such that I could detect her fragrance product. The identical product she had worn throughout all my years of existence. Her verbal expression diminished to a whisper that cut with greater severity than any elevated volume would have achieved. Admission is restricted to family members exclusively. Your inclusion was not requested. The second they passed, her face reset to stone. Not invited, I said. I signed every contract for this wedding. I paid the deposit. This isn't about money. This is about what's appropriate. Appropriate, Athena, please. Don't make a scene. Behind her, through the half-open barn door, I could see white chairs arranged in rows, garlands of eucalyptus draped from the rafters, a string quartet warming up near the altar. Everything I'd funded with my signature. Frank appeared in the doorway. He looked at Diane, then at me, then at the ground. He put his hands in his pockets and said nothing, absolutely nothing. From inside, a woman's voice called out, warm, southern, confident. Diane, who's that? Everything all right? I saw Diane's spine straighten. I saw her paste on a fresh smile before she turned halfway toward the voice. And that voice, I'd learn in about 3 seconds, belonged to Margaret Caldwell, the groom's mother. The woman who'd been told my mother only had one daughter. Margaret Caldwell stepped through the barn doors in a lavender dress and pearls. She was tall, silver-haired, the kind of woman who runs the church auction and the county fundraiser and still has time to arrange her own flowers. She carried herself like someone who'd never been embarrassed in public, not once. Diane, everything all right out here? Margaret's gaze landed on me. She smiled, open, expectant. Diane turned on like a switch. Her voice went honey-warm. Oh, it's nothing, Margaret, just a distant relative who got the wrong venue. Happens with these big events, distant relative. She said it while looking right at me. Margaret studied my face. Oh, I thought you only had one daughter, Diane. The silence lasted maybe 2 seconds. It felt like 20. Diane laughed, a bright, brittle sound. I do. This is a cousin from out of town. She's just confused about the schedule. Margaret nodded slowly, glanced at me one more time, then touched Diane's arm. Well, tell her the ceremony starts in 10 minutes. We should head in. Margaret went back inside. The barn doors swung gently behind her. I looked at my mother. She looked at me. In her eyes there was no guilt, no shame, no flicker of I'm sorry, I had no choice. Just fear, raw, cornered animal fear. The kind that comes when a lie you've been feeding for months is about to choke you. A cousin, I said. Athena, please. You told them you only have one daughter. It's complicated. You wouldn't understand. How long have you been telling people I don't exist? She didn't answer. She glanced toward the parking lot, willing me to disappear. That was when I understood. She didn't forget to invite me. She erased me, and she'd been doing it for years. Every muscle in my body wanted to walk through those doors. To stand in the middle of that ceremony and say, loud enough for Margaret and Garrett and every guest in the barn to hear, my name is Athena Sinclair. I am Diane's eldest daughter. And I paid for every flower, every plate, and every note that string quartet is playing. I didn't. I looked at the barn, the fairy lights, the garlands, the soft golden glow through the windows. I looked at my mother still standing in my path like a sentry. I looked at my father's shadow just inside the doorway, shoulders hunched, hands still in his pockets, and I made a decision. I crouched down and set the gift box on the stone step, gently like it mattered. Keep the gift, I said. It's for Brooke. Diane's shoulders dropped half an inch, relief. She thought it was over. Thank you, Athena. This is really for the don't. I held up one hand. Don't explain, don't justify. I heard you. I heard every word. I turned and walked back down the gravel path. Past the mason jars, past the couples still arriving holding hands, laughing about the heat, past my rental car and then to it. I opened the door, sat down, closed it. Then I cried, not the loud kind. The quiet kind, the kind where your chest shakes but your mouth stays shut because even alone in a parking lot, you've been trained not to make a scene. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes. Through the open windows, I heard the string quartet begin Pachelbel's canon. The ceremony was starting. I started the engine and pulled out of the lot. In the rearview mirror, Meadow Creek Barn shrank to a speck of light. I didn't slam a single door. I didn't raise my voice once. I just left. And for the first time, leaving felt like the strongest thing I'd ever done. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, Athena, why didn't you just say it, right there in front of everyone? Trust me. I asked myself that the entire drive back to the hotel, but let me ask you something. If your mother looked you dead in the eye and called you a cousin in front of a stranger, what would you do? Drop your answer in the comments, and if this story is hitting close to something real for you, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Now, back to the story. I drove back to the Magnolia Inn on autopilot. The roads were empty. Everyone in Cedar Bluff was at the wedding, apparently. Inside my room, I kicked off my heels and sat on the bed. Still in my dress, mascara smudged, hands shaking. The toast I'd written was still open in my notes app. I closed it without reading it, then I opened my laptop. 4 emails sat in my inbox from the past 2 weeks, confirmations from vendors addressed to me as the contract holder. I'd skim them when they arrived. Now I read every word. Meadow Creek Barn, contract holder Athena Sinclair. Deposit paid $1,200, remaining balance $14,800, due within 5 business days post-event. Southern Comfort Catering, contract holder Athena Sinclair. Deposit paid $900, remaining balance $12,600, due within 5 business days post-event. Bluebonnet Floral Design, contract holder Athena Sinclair. Deposit paid $800, remaining balance $6,200. Whitaker Photography, contract holder Athena Sinclair. Deposit paid $600. Remaining balance $4,400. I scrolled through each one. My name, my card number, my signature, scanned and attached in PDF. Every single contract structured the same way. Deposit up front, balance due after the event. Total deposits already paid $3,500. Gone. Total outstanding balance $38,000. I closed the laptop, sat still. The barn was probably mid-reception by now, toasts being made, Diane hugging Brooke, Garrett spinning his bride on the dance floor, the Caldwells clinking glasses with their new in-laws. All of it happening under contracts signed by someone they just called a cousin. I didn't make any calls that night. I didn't fire off any emails. I just sat on that hotel bed and let the numbers repeat in my head. $38,000, my name, their party. My phone rang at 9:47 that night. The caller ID read, Aunt Ruth, Ruth Mercer, my mother's older sister, 62, retired school principal, the kind of woman who says exactly what she thinks and has never once apologized for it. Diane called her difficult, everyone else called her honest. Athena, where are you? I didn't see you at the wedding. I was there, Aunt Ruth. I just didn't make it inside. What do you mean you didn't make it inside? I told her all of it. The blocked entrance, the whisper, only family, the word cousin, Margaret Caldwell's question. Diane's answer, silence on the line, a long one. I could hear Ruth breathing. Slow, deliberate, the way she does when she's deciding exactly how angry to be. She told them you don't exist. Ruth's voice was flat, controlled like a pot about to boil. She said she only has one daughter. Lord have mercy. A pause. Athena, listen to me. At the reception tonight, your mother stood up during the toast and said, and I'm quoting her, our little family, Frank, myself, and our Brooke. She introduced the Sinclairs like that. I sat there and thought it was strange. I almost said something. I wish I had. It's not your fault, Aunt Ruth. No, it's not. It's Diane's. And she's going to hear about it. Another pause, sharper now. Athena, those vendor contracts, the ones for the wedding, whose name are they under? Mine. All of them, all of them. Ruth went quiet again. When she spoke, her voice had shifted. Still angry, but with a threat of something harder underneath, something strategic. Then you listen to me, honey. Your mama told a room full of people you don't exist. You don't owe that room a single cent. Sunday morning, I woke to a notification from Instagram. Brooke had posted a carousel of wedding photos, 14 images. The first was the 2 of them at the altar. Brooke in lace, Garrett in a charcoal suit, the barn glowing gold behind them. The second was the family portrait. Frank, Diane, Brooke, Garrett, Margaret, and Richard Caldwell, 6 people. 2 families joined, 1 family short a daughter. The caption, surrounded by everyone who matters, #Caldwell forever. I read it 3 times, then I opened my email. The venue's invoice had come in overnight, automated, cheerful, with a little barn logo in the header. Thank you for choosing Meadow Creek Barn. Your remaining balance of $14,800 is due by Thursday, March 6th. Below it, invoices from the caterer, the florist, the photographer, all time-stamped Saturday evening. All addressed to Athena Sinclair, all with 5-day deadlines. $38,000 due Thursday. I looked at the Instagram post again, everyone who matters. Then I looked at the invoices, something shifted, not a snap, not a sudden rage or a dramatic decision. It was quieter than that, like a lock turning, like a door that had been stuck for years finally clicking open. I wasn't angry, not yet. Anger would come later, in waves, in the middle of the night. In the shower, during meetings I couldn't focus on. Right now, in that hotel room on a Sunday morning in Cedar Bluff, Tennessee, I felt something simpler: clarity. I was the only person who paid for this wedding. I was the only person not in those photos, and I was the only person receiving invoices for a party I'd been thrown out of. Something had to give. And it wasn't going to be me, not this time. Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Brooke, not a call. She didn't try to actually talk to me. She just left a message like she was checking off a task. I pressed play. "Hey Athena, so the wedding was amazing, like literally perfect. The barn looked incredible. And Garrett's family was so sweet. Anyway, sorry, things were kind of weird yesterday. Mom said it was for the best, and honestly I think she was right. It would have been a lot to explain. But I just wanted to say thanks for helping with the vendor stuff. Seriously, you're the best, big sis. Let's catch up soon, okay? Love you." I listened to it twice. Sorry, things were kind of weird. Not, I'm sorry Mom turned you away at the door. Not, I should have stood up for you. Not, I had no idea. I would have fought for you. Mom said it was for the best. Brooke knew. She knew before the wedding. She knew Diane was going to turn me away, and she signed off on it. She probably helped plan it. And then that last line, "You're the best, big sis." I used to love hearing that. It made me feel valued, like all the sacrifices meant something. But sitting in that hotel room, mascara from yesterday still faintly smudged on the pillowcase, I heard it differently. She calls me that when she needs something, only when she needs something. I didn't call her back, I didn't text. I set my phone face down on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. The invoices were due Thursday. My family had just told 120 people I didn't exist. And my sister had left me a voicemail that said, "Thanks for paying." I had 4 days to decide who I was going to be. Sunday night, Magnolia Inn, the game show couple next door had checked out. The hallway was dead quiet. I sat cross-legged on the bed with my laptop open and typed into the search bar. Am I legally responsible for vendor contracts I signed for someone else's event? The answers were consistent. The person whose name is on the contract holds the legal obligation. But the person whose name is on the contract also holds the authority. I could authorize payment, I could decline it, I could redirect the invoices to the party that received the services. I picked up my phone and called Meadow Creek Barn. It rang 3 times. "Meadow Creek, this is Julie." "Hi Julie, my name is Athena Sinclair. I'm the contract holder for the Caldwell Sinclair event this past Saturday." "Oh yes, Ms. Sinclair, beautiful event. What can I help you with?" "I need to inform you that I will not be authorizing the final payment on this contract. I was not present at the event and I'm formally requesting that the outstanding balance be redirected to the event hosts." A pause. "Oh, okay. I'll need to pass this to our manager, but can I ask, is there a dispute?" "No dispute. I'm simply not authorizing the charge. The invoice should go to the Sinclair family in Cedar Bluff." Julie took my email, confirmed the request, and said someone would follow up Monday morning. I hung up and called the caterer. Same script, same calm voice, same result. Then the florist, then the photographer. 4 calls, 12 minutes total. I didn't yell, I didn't threaten, I didn't explain why. I just said one word over and over, politely and firmly: no. When I was done, I closed my laptop, brushed my teeth, and slept through the night for the first time in 2 days. Monday morning, I changed my flight. Instead of staying through Wednesday like I'd planned, I booked the first available seat back to London. A 6:00 a.m. departure through Atlanta. I packed in 10 minutes. Checked out of the Magnolia Inn before dawn. The same front desk woman was on shift. She smiled and asked, "How was the wedding?" "Memorable," I said. The drive to Nashville took 2 hours. On the way, I passed through Cedar Bluff one last time. Main Street was quiet, just the diner, the hardware store, the Baptist church where I got baptized at 12. I drove past the house I grew up in. The porch light was still on. I could picture what was happening inside. Diane at the kitchen table with coffee still high on the reception. Frank reading the paper. The house full of leftover wedding cake and congratulations cards, my name not mentioned once. When I was 10, Diane told me, "Athena, you're the big sister. You have to be strong for Brooke." I'd been strong for 24 years. I'd been strong through Brooke's childhood illness, the meningitis scare that reshaped our entire family dynamic. I'd been strong through every financial crisis, every unanswered call, every holiday I spent alone in London pretending the time difference was the reason, not the distance. I turned onto the highway and didn't look back. 18 hours later, I landed at Heathrow. Gray sky, drizzle, the most beautiful weather I'd ever seen. I turned on my phone in the arrivals hall. No missed calls, no texts. Nobody in Cedar Bluff had noticed I was gone or cared enough to check, but they'd notice soon. The vendors would start making calls by Tuesday. The invoices would land by Wednesday and then my phone would ring. I was sure of that. Tuesday 3:00 p.m. London time, 9:00 a.m. Tennessee. My phone rang, Mom on the screen. I let it ring 3 times, then I picked up. Athena, hi honey, sweet light, the voice she uses when she wants something. How was your flight back? Fine, good. Listen, I just got the strangest call from the venue. They said you removed your payment authorization. The bill is $38,000. How do we handle this? We don't handle it, Mom, you handle it. A beat of silence. Excuse me, I removed my authorization because I'm not responsible for an event I wasn't invited to. Athena, don't be dramatic, you know this was just a misunderstanding. We can talk about it. You told Margaret Caldwell I was a distant relative. You told her you only have one daughter. That's not a misunderstanding, Mom, that's a choice. Longer silence now. I could hear her breathing change, the sweetness evaporating. After everything I've done for you, she said, this is how you repay me. You raised me, I'm grateful for that. But you also stood in front of your daughter and told a stranger she doesn't exist. Those two things can both be true. You're blowing this out of proportion. $38,000, that's the proportion. Your father is stressed, his blood pressure, if something happens to him, that's on you. Dad stood right there and said nothing. He made his choice too. Silence. I could hear her swallow. You said I wasn't family, I said, so the family's bill is the family's responsibility. The line went dead, she hung up, no goodbye, no argument, just a click and silence. I set my phone on the kitchen counter and stared at it. My hands were steady, my heartbeat was normal, and the apartment was quiet, really, genuinely quiet for the first time in months. She called back 40 minutes later, different tone this time, no honey, no sweetness, full throttle. Do you have any idea what you've done? Yes, the venue is calling me, the caterer is calling me. I'm getting invoices forwarded to my email with your name crossed out and mine written in. Do you know how humiliating that is? I imagine it's about as humiliating as being called a cousin at your own sister's wedding. That is not the same thing. You're right, yours cost $38,000. I raised you, I fed you, I drove you to school every single day for 12 years, and now, because of one little misunderstanding, you're going to bankrupt your own family. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Fine, Athena, you want to play this game? I'll tell everyone, I'll tell the whole town what kind of daughter abandons her family over money. Go ahead. I'd rather be the daughter you badmouth than the daughter you pretend doesn't exist. That stopped her. I heard her pull in a breath, sharp, involuntary, like she'd walked into cold water. You don't mean that, she said, quieter now. I do. Another long pause, then the final weapon, the one she always keeps in reserve. Your father could have a heart attack over this. If he ends up in the hospital, that blood is on your hands. There it was, the trump card, Dad's health, the guilt grenade. She'd thrown it at me when I moved to London, when I skipped Thanksgiving, when I stopped sending money without being asked. Dad's health is between him and his doctor, I said, not me and my credit card. She hung up again. This time I didn't stare at the phone. I put the kettle on and made a cup of tea. By Wednesday, Diane had activated what I called the family phone tree. Every branch, every twig. Brooke called first, crying, the big, messy, theatrical kind she's perfected since childhood. Athena, please, Garrett and I just got married. We don't have $38,000. If you don't pay, we have to. We're starting our lives together and you're ruining it. Brooke, did you know Mom told the Caldwells I don't exist? A sniffle, a pause. I mean, she said it would be easier that way. With the Caldwells, you know, they're traditional, and having a daughter overseas who's not married and easier. It wasn't personal, Athena, it was just simpler. You knew before the wedding. I didn't think they'd actually turn you away, but you didn't stop them. Silence, more sniffing, then can we please just focus on the bill? Garrett's parents are asking questions, then maybe it's time someone gave them honest answers. She hung up. Frank called that afternoon. My father almost never calls. He emails once in a while, short, factual messages about weather or football scores. Hearing his voice on the phone felt strange, like picking up an old tool you'd forgotten you owned. Athena, your mother is very upset. I know, can you be flexible on this for the family? Dad, did you know she told people I'm not your daughter? A long exhale, the sound of a man who spent 35 years choosing the path of least resistance. That's not exactly what happened. Were you there when she called me a distant relative? Right in front of me, nothing. Then very quietly, a click, he hung up. Every single one of them hung up when the questions got real. I was starting to see a pattern, and it looked a lot like a family that preferred silence to truth. Aunt Ruth didn't wait for permission. She never has. Thursday morning, the same day the vendor invoices were due, Ruth picked up her phone and called Margaret Caldwell directly. She got the number from the wedding program she'd kept in her purse. Classic Ruth. I wasn't on the call. Ruth told me about it afterward, and she didn't spare details. Margaret, my name is Ruth Mercer. I'm Diane Sinclair's older sister. We met briefly at the reception. Oh yes, Ruth, lovely to hear from you. I'm calling because there's something you need to know. Diane has 2 daughters, not 1, 2. The older one is Athena. She's 34, lives in London, works in technology. She's the one who signed every vendor contract for that wedding, every single one. And on Saturday, Diane stopped her at the door and told her to leave. Ruth said the silence on Margaret's end lasted a full 10 seconds. I beg your pardon, Margaret said. The woman Diane introduced as a distant relative, that was her firstborn daughter. Athena flew 18 hours to be there. She paid the deposit out of her own pocket. And Diane turned her away because she'd been telling your family the Sinclairs only had 1 child. Margaret's voice went cold, thin, the kind of cold that comes from a woman who prides herself on knowing exactly who she's doing business with. Why would Diane do that? You'd have to ask her. But I can tell you this, that girl flew 18 hours, signed every check, and got turned away like a stranger at the door. And she still didn't make a scene. That's more grace than my sister deserves. Ruth said Margaret thanked her, said she needed to make some calls, and hung up. The fuse was lit, and Cedar Bluff was a very small town. I didn't ask Aunt Ruth to make that call. But when she told me she had, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. I felt seen. For the first time, someone in my family said out loud, "What happened to you was wrong. I want to ask you something. Has anyone ever been that person for you? The one who broke the silence when no one else would? Or are you still waiting? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe if you want to hear how this ends." Back to the story. Thursday afternoon, I sat at my desk in my London apartment with a fresh cup of Earl Grey and systematically closed every open account. I emailed each vendor: Meadow Creek Barn, Southern Comfort Catering, Bluebonnet Floral, Whitaker Photography. The message was identical for all 4, written with the precision of someone who writes technical documentation for a living. Dear vendor name, this email serves as formal notice that I, Athena Sinclair, the undersigned contract holder, do not authorize any further charges to my credit card on file. I am formally requesting that all outstanding invoices be redirected to the event The Sinclair Family of Cedar Bluff, Tennessee. Please confirm receipt of this notice. Regards, Athena Sinclair. 4 emails, 4 confirmations within the hour. The vendors were polite, professional, and clearly not surprised. Julie from Meadow Creek even replied, "Understood, Ms. Sinclair. We've updated our records." I called my bank next, canceled the card linked to the contracts, ordered a replacement with a new number. $38,000 in outstanding charges would now route directly to the people who'd thrown the party. The deposits, $3,500, were gone, paid months ago, non-refundable. I accepted that. Combined with my travel costs, the flights, the hotel, the gift, I was out $6,300. I sat with that number, $6,300, the price of learning that I was never going to be enough for them. That no amount of signing, paying, flying, or showing up would earn me a seat at a table they'd built without a chair for me. $6,300. Honestly, it was a bargain. I closed my laptop, rinsed my mug, and went for a walk along the Thames. The river was gray, the air was sharp, and I felt for the first time in years like I owed nothing to anyone. Friday morning, one last thing, I opened a new email. Recipients: Diane Sinclair, Frank Sinclair, Brooke Caldwell. I drafted it once, deleted it, drafted again, too emotional, deleted, 3rd attempt. Clean, direct, no adjectives I didn't need. Diane, Frank, and Brooke, I have formally removed my payment authorization from all vendor contracts associated with Brooke's wedding. The outstanding balance of $38,000 has been redirected to you as the event hosts. I will not be discussing this further. I wish Brooke and Garrett a wonderful marriage. Going forward, please do not contact me regarding financial matters. If any of you want a relationship with me, it starts with honesty, not invoices. Athena. I read it 4 times, checked for typos, checked the tone, made sure there was nothing in it that could be called petty, vindictive, or cruel. There wasn't, it was a boundary. Clean as a line on a map, I hit send. Then I closed the laptop, put on the kettle, and stood by the window. My apartment overlooks a small courtyard with a plane tree that drops its leaves all over the neighbor's bicycle. It's not much, but it's mine. I pay the rent, I chose the curtains. Nobody here has ever told me I don't belong. For months, maybe years, I'd been carrying a weight I couldn't name. The constant calculation, am I doing enough? Am I giving enough? If I send more money, call more often, fly home one more time, will they finally see me? Standing in that kitchen, holding a cup of tea I made for myself in an apartment I earned with work I'm proud of, I felt the weight lift. I didn't write that email to hurt them. I wrote it so I'd stop hurting myself. Aunt Ruth kept me updated. She said she tried not to enjoy it, but she's a terrible liar. Margaret Caldwell called Diane the same afternoon Ruth dropped the truth. The conversation, relayed to Ruth by a mutual friend who happened to be at Margaret's house when the call was made, went about how you'd expect. You lied to us, Diane. Margaret's voice was steady, not loud. The Caldwells don't do loud. You told us you had one daughter. We welcomed your family into ours based on trust. That trust is broken, Diane tried to explain. It was a private family matter. Athena and I have been estranged. Estranged, Ruth says your daughter signed every contract for this wedding. That's not estranged, that's exploited. Margaret told Diane that the Caldwells would not be covering the $38,000. That's between you and your vendors, we didn't sign those contracts. Apparently neither did you, Garrett confronted Brooke that evening. Ruth got this part from Garrett's cousin, who heard it through the Caldwell grapevine because Cedar Bluff has exactly one grapevine and everyone's on it. You have a sister, Garrett said. An actual sister, and she paid for our entire wedding and your mother kicked her out, Brooke cried. It's complicated, babe. It's not complicated, Brooke, it's a lie. Your family lied to my family on our wedding day. The newlyweds' first real fight happened 4 days into the marriage, over a sister the groom didn't know existed. And a bill neither of them could afford. Brooke and Garrett would end up taking out a personal loan for the $38,000. The Caldwells helped co-sign, not out of generosity, but because their name was on the event and they didn't want the vendors coming after them. The fairytale wedding now had a monthly payment attached to it. Cedar Bluff is the kind of town where everyone knows your business by Tuesday and has an opinion about it by Wednesday. By the following week, the story had made its way through the Baptist church, the diner on Main Street, the PTA network, and the auto dealership waiting room. The details shifted slightly with each retelling, the way they always do, but the core stayed the same. Diane Sinclair hid her eldest daughter, turned her away at the wedding, and then sent her the bill. Bev Henderson, Diane's neighbor of 19 years, stopped her in the church parking lot after Sunday service. Diane, I had no idea you had 2 girls. How come I've never met your older daughter? Diane tried the script she'd been rehearsing. Athena lives overseas, we're not as close as I'd like, it's a painful subject. Bev nodded slowly. Ruth tells it a bit different. Diane stopped attending that church. She switched to the Methodist one 2 towns over where nobody knew the Sinclairs by name. Frank became quieter than usual, which is saying something. He stopped going to the hardware store on Saturdays, stopped sitting on the porch in the evenings. The few people who saw him said he looked like a man carrying something he couldn't put down. Diane blamed Ruth, called her one morning, voice shaking. You destroyed my family, Ruth's response, as she told me later, was brief. I didn't expose you, Diane. I just stopped covering for you. Diane hung up, added Ruth to the list of family members she wasn't speaking to. That list was growing, and the thing Diane had spent years building, the image of a devoted mother with a perfect little family, was crumbling, not because anyone attacked it. It crumbled because someone finally told the truth. 2 weeks after the wedding, a text from Brooke, long, rambling. I could almost hear her crying while typing it. Athena, I'm so sorry about everything. It all got out of control. I didn't know Mom was going to say those things to the Caldwells, I swear. Garrett is furious with me. His parents barely look at me. The loan payments start next month and we're already behind on the apartment deposit. I know this is a lot to ask, but could you maybe cover part of the balance? Even half, I'll pay you back. I promise, you're my sister and I love you and I just need help right now. I read it sitting at my desk during a lunch break, read it again, then a 3rd time looking for something specific. An apology for turning me away, an acknowledgement that she knew and didn't stop it, a single sentence that said, "What happened to you at the door was wrong, it wasn't there." The whole message was about Brooke's problems, Garrett's anger, the loan, the apartment, the Caldwell's cold shoulders. My pain wasn't mentioned once. It was a crisis update dressed up as an apology. She apologized for the mess, not for the wound. There's a difference. I typed my reply carefully. "Brooke, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. I really am, but I can't help financially." The boundary I set isn't about money. It's about being treated like family, real family, not the kind that gets erased when it's inconvenient. When you're ready to talk about that and not invoices, I'm here. I hit send, put my phone in my desk drawer, went back to work. She didn't respond, not that day, not that week. I wasn't surprised. She'd never known what to do with me when I wasn't her something. 1 month after the wedding, an email from Frank. My father doesn't email. He calls once in a blue moon, and when he does, he talks about the weather or the Titans' defensive line. He has never, in my 34 years of life, written me anything longer than a birthday card. So when I saw his name in my inbox with the subject line from Dad, I sat up in my chair. "Athena, I know I should have said something that day at the barn. I didn't. I stood there like a post while your mother handled it, and I didn't open my mouth. I don't have a good reason. I was a coward, that's the truth. Your mother and I are working on the bill with the vendors. We don't need your money. I'm writing because I wanted you to know I'm sorry. I should have walked you inside. I'll carry that, Dad." I read it 5 times. I read it at my desk, on the tube home, and once more sitting on my couch with the lights off. It wasn't perfect. It didn't fix anything. He didn't confront Diane. He didn't demand she apologize. He didn't explain why he'd spent decades choosing peace over his own daughter. But it was honest, and it was the first honest thing anyone in my family had said to me since this started. I didn't reply right away. I needed time. A week later I wrote back, "Dad, thank you. That means more than you know. I'm not ready to come home or to pretend everything is fine, but I read your email and I'll keep reading it. Athena." Short, careful, leaving the door open exactly 1 in. Not wide enough to be walked through, but not locked. He didn't write back. I didn't expect him to, but he'd said it and I'd heard it. 6 months have passed since that Saturday at Meadow Creek Barn. I got promoted, senior software engineer at the fintech company I've been with for 4 years. My boss cited leadership under pressure in the review. She didn't know the half of it. I started seeing a therapist, not because of the wedding, because of the 34 years before it. We've been unpacking something she calls functional over responsibility. The belief that if I perform well enough, sacrifice enough, carry enough, the people I love will finally see me. It's the engine that powered every check I wrote, every flight I booked, every time I said fine when I meant this hurts. I video call Aunt Ruth every other Sunday. She makes coffee, I make tea, and we talk for an hour about everything and nothing. She keeps me updated on Cedar Bluff, not to gossip, but so I'm not blindsided. Diane and Frank have paid off $12,000 of the 38. They used a chunk of their retirement savings. The rest is on the loan Brooke and Garrett took out. The monthly payments are a source of tension in the Caldwell-Sinclair household. Garrett's parents are civil but distant. Margaret still hasn't forgiven Diane. Brooke and Garrett are still married. Ruth says they're in counseling. She says Garrett's a decent man who's trying, but the foundation cracked on day 1, and cracks like that don't seal easily. Diane hasn't called me, hasn't emailed, hasn't sent so much as a text. Ruth says she refers to the situation as Athena's tantrum. I suppose that's easier than calling it what it is. I don't hate my mother. I've spent a lot of therapy hours making sure of that, but I've stopped pretending her version of love didn't hurt. It did. And pretending otherwise was killing me slowly, one signed contract at a time. I'm not telling you this story so you'll hate my mother. She's flawed. She's scared. She built an image of a perfect family because the real one felt like it wasn't enough. And somewhere along the way, I became the piece that didn't fit the frame. That's not an excuse. It's just what happened. And I think part of growing up is accepting that the people who raised you are also just people stumbling through their own fears and failures. But I am telling you this story because maybe you're living a version of it. Maybe you're the one who flies 18 hours, literally or metaphorically, to show up for people who won't hold the door open for you. Maybe you're the one signing the contracts, covering the costs, absorbing the silence, and calling it love because you don't know what else to call it. I did that for a long time. I called it duty. I called it family. I called it being the bigger person. And every time I wrote a check or swallowed an insult or pretended the empty chair at the table didn't bother me, I lost a little piece of myself. A boundary isn't punishment, it's not revenge. It's not a weapon, a boundary is the moment you say, I'm worth more than this. And then you act like it. $38,000, that's what my freedom cost, and I don't regret a single penny I didn't pay. If you're the one who always pays emotionally, financially, spiritually, for a seat at a table that was never built for you, maybe it's time to build your own table and sit at the head of it. I didn't lose my family that day at Meadow Creek Barn. I found myself, and honestly, she was worth the wait. Thank you for staying until the end of this one. It means a lot. I want to ask you, if you were me, would you have paid the $38,000 or would you have drawn the line? Drop pay or boundary in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. If this story touched something real in you, hit like and subscribe. I share stories like this every week about family, about boundaries, about finding your voice when the people closest to you try to silence it. And if you want more, check the description for another story I think you'll connect with. I'll see you in the next one.